get started and introduce our keynote speaker here today, Diane Greene, who I'm thrilled to have this conversation with. Diane was the founder and CEO of VMware. She led VMware from its very inception all the way through IPO to be this massive company which it is today, worth tens of billions of dollars. And then after the huge success at VMware, Diane went on to Google, where she is now the SVP of Cloud, running the entire cloud business, a 13,000-person organization, and also serves on the board of Google. And so she really has a unique perspective from many sides, as an entrepreneur, as a large company, private cloud, public cloud, different types of applications, consumer, enterprise, all of those are experiences that Diane has, and I'm really happy to have her here with us to share her thoughts. So with that, let me start with the first question. Diane, tell us, what is it like to start a company from scratch? How does an idea become a company which can then become this huge entity that VMware is today?
Okay. Nice to be here with all of you, by the way, and I hope you have lots of questions, because questions are fun. So, yeah, VMware was sort of my third startup, and so the way VMware started was, you know, Mendel Rosenblum is a professor at Stanford in systems, and he's my husband. And he was doing this interesting research, and he had published a paper that attracted a lot of interest. And I said, geez, you know, you should really file a patent on some of this IP for Stanford. And then we were talking more and more, and he was virtualizing the MIPS chip to show the values of virtualization, and we were talking, gosh, if you put this on x86, that could be really valuable for people. And then two of his grad students that were working on the project started getting approached by companies to port the work over, so they kind of came to us and said, we're thinking of doing this. And so finally we said, well, you know, we really think there's a company here. If you want to go consult to those companies and port the work, you can, but if you'd like to take a shot at building a company and really bringing this to market, we'll do that with you. And they decided, this was Ed Bunyan and Scott Devine, and so they decided to do that with us. And I thought, actually at the time, I was pregnant with my second kid, and I thought, well, I'll help you get this going, but I'm going to have a kid. And so we developed, you know, once we really thought through all that could be done with this technology, we really believed that it should run on, you know, the office manager I hired still tells me that when she came in, she was a very smart office manager, had a PhD in microbiology, and I said, look, someday this is going to run on every desktop machine. We didn't have laptops quite yet, and every desktop and every server, it's going to run on all the machines. It's a better way to run. And she said she decided to take the job because anybody that was kind of going to make claims like that might be fun to work with. And so basically we had this giant vision, but then we were such pragmatic, frugal people. We said, well, we better find a narrow way to bring it to market, to get, to prove it out, to debug it, and see if we can get people to see the value. So you know, we just came together and we defined this little desktop product to run Linux with Windows. As our first step, we wanted to build this server. And, you know, we were very careful about who we hired. Like, we had a really talented person that wanted to join the company, but we thought he was too much of a prima donna. And so we, you know, cared about everything. And we started building the company, and it, you know, it was really, we were very lucky to be able to realize our vision.
So thank you for sharing that, Diane. And I want to just highlight two things from what she said. One, this is the third company she started. So it was an instant overnight success, you know, that you see in VMware over here, as we often joke in the startup world. And secondly, the ad hoc nature in how companies often start. There isn't a grand plan on day one which just lays out a vision perfectly for what the future is going to be like. There is an ad hoc element to how these things develop. They're very organic. And so that's why these experiences are so important. So let me take it in a different direction. At VMware, you did not raise any traditional venture capital money from Sandhill VCs. How come? And how did the company evolve?
Well, when we formed the company, and I went around and talked to the hardware vendors, I actually knew the CTO then at HP, and just through I had originally worked at Tandem Computers and Sybase, and so I knew people in the industry, and they didn't really see the point to what we were doing, and kind of made a little bit of fun of us. And so I thought, okay. And then we talked to a few VCs who were interested more because of the people, I think, than anything else. And their vision for what we should do with our technology just seemed completely wrong to us. So we finally decided, well, maybe we should do an angel round, and maybe we should look for wealthy people that are really deep technologists. And so Andy Bechtolsheim and David Sheridan were our first two seed investors, and they basically, it was an hour-long conversation. They got it immediately. They said, yeah, I'm in. And so that was, a pretty easy way to raise money. And then I had money from my previous company had been sold to Microsoft, so I had money from that, so I put in a bunch of seed money. And then we always thought, well, maybe we'll take VC money later. And so we got going, and we actually got our workstation product in the market, and Intel was trying to invest in us, and we were sort of talking to VCs, and this was in 2000. It was in April of 2000, and some of you might remember. I always remember it because it was right during tax season. It was like April 15th, the bubble burst. And the VCs came, I thought I was keeping a very low valuation, but the VCs came back. Like, I could have pushed it higher, but I wanted to go public, and I didn't want to have a down round, so I had purposely kept it down. And they came back and said, oh, we're going to have your valuation. Did you see what happened in the market? And so I actually was running two parallel fundings, one with the VCs, because I wasn't sure. I didn't have a totally confident feeling about them for some reason. And so I was also talking to hardware vendors that we would partner with, and in particular Dell Computers, because they didn't build software, so I didn't think they would compete with us. And so when the VCs backed out, I went to Dell Computer was our first Series A investor. So we almost had VCs.
And build a great company. Another great example of an ad hoc nature that companies tend to follow as they get built. Let's move on further now to Google, which is where you are today running this very interesting business. Looking towards the future, why is everyone so excited about the cloud? And especially, why is Google interested in the cloud?
Well, the cloud is the biggest IT revolution ever, I think. It's just everything's changing and everything's moving to the cloud because it's more secure, it's more cost effective, and it's an incredible way to share data and share what everybody's doing. Once you're in the cloud, anybody can, whether it's healthcare records or what have you, it's all there in the cloud for everybody to share and build off of. So why Google would do this? I mean, it's a very expensive undertaking, but we've been doing it anyhow. Google has 7 billion plus active user applications that Google runs on its cloud. And it's been doing cloud data centers for 16 years. It's been doing data analytics, data management at scale for 16 years. And it's a core competence of the company. And so it's very exciting that we're all coming together in the cloud to do these things. And the other reason I think why Google is, I think it's a new time for the enterprise. I think the enterprise is more receptive to innovation than it's ever been because things are changing so fast. They're watching companies get disrupted, and they know if they don't go to the cloud, if they don't do machine learning, if they don't really get more collaborative and go, make that digital transformation, that they're going to be left behind. So people are aggressively looking for innovation, and I think innovation is a core competence of Google.
Certainly, Google has been very innovative in the way they use technologies and the way they've grown. So what is Google going to do differently in the cloud? Amazon was early over there with AWS, which has seen a lot of success in the market. Why should a startup today choose Google, and how will Google approach it?
Yeah, I mean, Amazon was out there a good 4 years before us, sort of offering hosting in the cloud. They've been, they've done a nice job of hosting VMs, virtual machines, in the cloud. I think there's a next generation of cloud going on where, the technology, the underpinnings of the technology really matters, and it's going to be about data analytics, data insights, and taking advantage of technology you might not get anywhere else, like big, huge machine learning trained data sets that you can use to bring into other applications. Like Google has speech recognition, it has image recognition, it has speech translation, language translation, all these sorts of things, maps, they sit in the cloud. And so it's just going to go on a very steep innovation curve. And also because Google has had to be built for such scale to run these huge applications, never go down, be highly reliable, but also be efficient. We've had, you can spend so much money on a data center and also building the infrastructure. So one, we have incredibly cost-effective data centers that lets us keep our costs down, but we also have automation, and we have the hooks built in for incredible automation to make it super easy for people. And I think you'll see, as we get further along, just the ease with which you can do things because of automation, and then, fantastic data management and analytics.
So all of these applications which you're describing, whether they're speech recognition, images, et cetera, and of course now with all the interest from enterprises, we see them moving to perhaps Google, moving into public clouds. Another big debate in the infrastructure space is public cloud versus private cloud. How do you see that evolving? What are going to be the trends over there?
Well, I think eventually everything will wind up in the public cloud.
That was going to be my next question, which is there a workload which will never go to the cloud?
What I see is if people have investments in data centers, they have leases on their data centers, they have equipment that they haven't amortized yet, and so that, there will be a hybrid world for a long, long time. And the things that'll move first to the cloud are anything where it's a net new application, or there's huge advantages to having the sharing that the cloud gives around data and other things. And then, the more simple applications that don't have a lot of dependencies will move. But over time, there's just going to be no reason to have your own data center.
So all applications will move to the cloud?
It's way more secure to be in the cloud. Google has 600 security engineers. It's just you can't operate at that kind of scale unless you've got the scale. Yeah.
That's also been another area of debate, this whole privacy, security, and how do you manage and protect your data, especially as you move into the cloud. You mentioned that Google has fabulous security, which I'm sure it's very, very hard to achieve. It's not easy for a company to make that happen.
Well, we've refined it. We've been in the crosshairs of the best hackers in the world for years.
That's true. There's no other. That's learning from the school of hard knocks, always being tested with it. So no question about that. But how do we gain maintain the trust? How does everybody come to trust the cloud with their data?
You know, I think, you know, I really enjoy these conversations that we have with some of the CIOs and chief security officers, and we just, you know, take them through the kinds of threats we know how to deal with. Yeah, you know, everything, like our data center. If you try and drive into our data center, one of our data centers, like our big Iowa data center I visited, and you can't even, they have one of those catchers, so if you try and tailgate someone in, you'll get picked up by this net. They picked up a whole UPS truck that was trying to tailgate their way in, you know, or if we can't manage to zero out the disk, it goes into a metal shredding machine, and there's no people, it's just security guards. I mean, so you have this incredible physical security, and then you have all the automated tools, which we're increasingly going to be able to bring to applications and customers for detecting any kind of threat using, you know, and increasingly applying machine learning to it and so forth.
Well, that's certainly interesting to hear about the levels.
But use multi-factor authentication no matter what.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the levels that you go to enable this security, it really is interesting to hear some of the anecdotes over there. Let's move in a different direction. Another recent debate has been containers, virtual machines, and how they will evolve. You've been on both sides of that. You invented, effectively, what is the modern virtual machine. How do you see that developing, and what should a startup company think about today as they enter this ecosystem?
Well, I think things are going to evolve from virtual machines to containers. Containers are not fully mature yet, but they're for many, many applications, brand new applications, they're a really great mechanism. I mean, we've been, at Google, we've been working with the Docker formats and the various vendors, Mesosphere and what's out there, but we have this Kubernetes, which we've open sourced, available to anybody, and that actually, it's interesting, it's our it's a smaller base, but it's our fastest growing product by far. And I think what it's showing is this trend towards complete automation, zero sysops, where everything auto scales, you know, and takes care of itself, so that someone with an application doesn't have to know anything about all that. They can just write their application and design a great UX. In fact, that's what Snapchat basically did, running an app engine.
What a great example of building a new application. I want to end with my last question on a very personal note, and then I'll tell people that if they have questions, please, you can start lining up over there, or I'll also get them on the app over here, and we'll be able to start doing some Q&A.
Okay, so I'm just going to add, we're very partnering friendly when you think about us versus other clouds. We're all about helping our partners, you know, get to market, get the visibility, and you know, optimize what they do on our cloud. Kind of forgot to say that.
Well, that's actually an interesting question, and we should explore that, because we do have a lot of startup companies in the audience over here today, which is, how does a startup company engage with Google? How can they work with you if they are working in the cloud space, in the infrastructure space? And I'm specifically talking about companies which are not doing advertising or search-related activities, because that is obviously a very different part of Google that we work with. So how should they approach that?
Well, I think it's fairly easy to start with a free trial on Google, and we have programs where we actually give credits, I think, to startups. Pretty easy to get free use of the cloud for quite some time. But you come in, you can just self-help off the website, you can get help from us, but we also, you know, one thing I'm learning about the cloud, and I really like this aspect of it, is it's about a technology partnership between the cloud provider, Google, or whatever. It's a partnership between the public cloud and the person you know, the SaaS provider, the person that built the application, and their team, and you know, they're continually bringing out new functionality, and we need to understand it so we can help them optimize the way they run it. And then as we bring out new functionality, continually let them optimize and lower their costs and take advantage of new technologies like machine learning or whatever it is. But it's an interesting, it's not just, oh, we're just going to sell you some software and good luck. It's, okay, we're going to partner. We're going to help you grow. We're going to help you optimize, and we're both in it for the long haul, because that's how it has to work. Because when you ran it in your own data center, you have your own system infrastructure people that worked very closely with the application builders. It's no different in the cloud. They're just going to sit in two different companies.
You've broken so many rules, and you've succeeded so well. As a woman, as an entrepreneur, building such a successful company, and then most recently you've broken a rule by going back into a very large company and working in an organization over there. Why? How does this happen? What makes it possible? And what advice would you have for the entrepreneurs in the room over here today?
So, yeah, I was definitely not looking to go join a big company. I wasn't looking for a big job. I was actually very happily running a startup with my friends, and many of them from VMware. And, because I'm on the board of Google, I was spending a lot of time with the cloud folks. I became very good friends with Urs Huszel, who's been running Google Cloud. He's employee number 7. He's basically built all of Google's infrastructure. Pretty amazing person. And the more we talked, he was, I now realize, was recruiting me, but I was learning about the cloud and the big opportunity, and it just became more and more compelling, and more, I was trying to help him find someone to run this thing, because I felt it was really important for Google to bring all this to the world, and well, anyhow, one thing led to another, and here I am in a pretty intense job, but it's just so exciting, because it's, as I said at the beginning, it's like the biggest IT revolution ever, and it's really, so cool to have a front row seat. Yeah.
You make it sound so easy. Let's start with some questions. I see some people lined up over here. Please, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi, this is Atul. Diane, the question I have is, how will Google differentiate and win against Amazon AWS, which has such a big lead in the public cloud?
Well, first you have to understand that people think about 5% of the workloads are in the public cloud right now. Some people say 10, but it's a small percentage of the workloads are in the public cloud. And I think the first generation of public cloud was people looking to use a hosted data center more than it was to really realize the full value of what people are going to ultimately get out of the cloud, which is, to really ride another company's innovation curve effectively for free. The best machine learning technology, this phenomenal data analytics, data that's available, trained data that's available, automation, and then an attitude towards, I think Google has so many proof points. We've open sourced so many of we have open sourced TensorFlow, our the world's best machine learning out there, and we've open sourced Dataflow. It's an Apache project, and we've open sourced Kubernetes. And we're quite committed to partners and to open APIs and open source. We believe things are going to run the best on our cloud. And then we've got, we're a very, very secure cloud. And as we add more features, we'll be able to share a lot of those strengths with applications. So I think a couple of years from now, things are going to look pretty darn different.
Thank you, Diane. You didn't mention that we are in Silicon Valley, and you are in Silicon Valley. Anyway, thank you.
Yes, we're in Silicon Valley.
No doubt about that.
Definitely.
Let's take a question on this side. Tushar.
Hey, Diane, I'm Tushar. I want to drill down a little more specifically on the question which Atul asked, and that will set the stage for the next panel also. how much of a factor big data analytics would be in differentiating one public cloud from another? Because it's like the convergence of cloud and big data. How much is that particular application, how much of influence it will have?
I think that's one of the huge benefits of the cloud, certainly that you can combine data from everywhere and then you can give people access to it. That's never been possible. I mean, people were shipping floppies around or, FTPing files, but you just couldn't have big scale data. It's very hard to move that much data, and so people can't share it. Like researchers, I was just talking to someone this morning, in health sciences and how hard it is for them to share their data. And the bigger the data set they have, the more effective their research is. And that's true of industry too. And then, it's not just one kind of data. There's multiple different kinds of data sources you might want to combine, and the cloud's going to facilitate that. And then, no one company is going to be able to develop I was talking to someone at a 250-person company, and they can't hire their own team of machine learning researchers. They can hire people that understand how to use machine learning, but they can't hire, at the scale of Google. And of course, we've been doing it since 2000. We've been investing in machine learning and AI. And so the ability to get these data sets there, to have them steadily increase and grow, you're going to be left behind if you're not part of these big data sets and understanding them and analyzing them. And then it's the increasingly sophisticated ways that we can extract meaning and insights out of them. It's pretty exciting. It's changing our whole world really quickly.
Perfect. Thank you, Diane.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead.
Hi, Diane. My name is Faiza. My question is a bit more on the personal level. So I had heard you 2 years ago speak at Female Founder Conference with Y Combinator, and you had mentioned that you were at that time working on a secret project, which now you've done well, and it's been bought by Google. And so I wanted to ask more about, and you said VMware was your third company, and you knew people like Andy and David who helped you, with your venture. What about the first time when you started out? Because after hearing your speech, and 2 years ago, I got really inspired, and I'm now doing my own thing as well. So I just wanted to ask you about the first time when you started out. What were the difficulties? Was it also a venture you did with your husband? Because you said VMware was something that you did with your husband, so you had your baby at the same time, so it was became.
She's graduating from high school this year.
Yeah, I remember you said she was at Gunn High School at that time, and 2 years ago. So so if you could share the first time that you started out and the challenges, and how did it lead to the third time where you had your big success?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, the first company I did, I co-founded with 4 IIT graduates. And they're incredible people. Actually, I take that back. 3 IIT graduates. 2 of them have won gold medals, and then someone from Spain and myself. And it was a streaming video company, like a little ahead of its time. Their bandwidth wasn't there to stream video, but we knew what to do. But so what happened was I was working on the interactive television project at SGI, and my job was I was going to stream the movies over the cable on demand, which was really radical back then. And I was looking around for something besides MPEG that would not use as much bandwidth. And I so happened that I was sharing childcare. I had a son at that point. We were sharing childcare and friends with Anup Gupta, who was a professor at Stanford at the time. And he was interested in online learning using video, and he and Naveel Chadra, he's a VC.
Naveen Chadha, who's now at Mayfield.
Yeah. And Rosen, I forget his last name, Sharma.
Rosen Sharma.
Yeah, and they had developed a codec back at Stanford that you could decode in real time, but it only made postage size videos, and it was a little erratic, but not very high quality. But anyhow, we decided we would do this, and we built this company. We started this company vExtreme, and I was going to actually run engineering. And what happened was we couldn't convince anybody to come be the CEO. They all thought, you guys are nuts. And so I had been doing a lot of database work with Informix, and I knew the CEO over there, Phil White, through my work at SGI, and we're like, we can't get a CEO, we can't raise money. And so I called up Phil White and said, he had this object database, and I said, gosh, we're gonna develop all this content, and we need an object database. We're gonna be a really good client of yours, and other people are going to build content for our streaming video service. And this is in 1993. And so he got excited, and he gave us seed money. So that's how we got going. And then we had a lucky break. Sun Microsystems got really excited about what we had, and Scott McNeely took me on stage in New York City at, you know, as something new and cool to show, and then we were able to raise some more money.
That's great. You should write a book with all your.
What'd you say?
You should write a book with all your anecdotes and stories for future entrepreneurs.
There's a wealth of, thank you, there's a wealth of.
Thank you very much. That was fun to remember.
On that note, you know, there's a wealth of wisdom here, and we could go forever, but I've already been told that we're running over time, and we started right on time, so I have to end. Thank you very much.
Okay.
There's
Thank
lots of
you.
people standing in the back. Thank you for coming. And